tell you what.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 105 of the Retic Lounge. I'm Lucas, and this is Nathan. We are your co-host, and we are up for another reverse interview that we are doing this week. And we have one of our newer Patreon members that are joining us today, and the topic is going to be behavior. So reticulated Python or snake behavior in general, and I think there's some troubleshooting or maybe even some questions that our guest has. If you guys are tuning in and listening to one of these reverse interviews for the very first time, we do this probably once a month or every 6 weeks with a Patreon guest. Kind of one of the perks of being a Patreon, they get to come on and do a reverse interview. So we have them on, they introduce themselves, give us a little bit of their background, and then we hand them the ropes and they ask us the questions on a specific topic. And I'm excited for this one because, I don't know, for me, behavior with snakes, like it can be very simple if you want to break it down and be simplistic, but I think specifically with reticulated pythons and other intelligent species, there's a lot more to it than just like food mode or thinking mode. So, Nate, you got anything before we bring Jacob St. John in?
I just want to give a shout out to our Patreon family, best Retic Discord out there. So if you do want to become a part of these reverse interviews, this is your way in. Let's see. We got a banger of an episode coming next week. We kind of almost teased at it last week, but we are going to be delving into the world of Ben Retic, from his accomplishments in the reptile world leading up to his unfortunate and untimely death. So that's one I'm super excited about. A couple of my foundational animals came from Retic stock, so it's something I'm a little bit, invested in.
Yeah, I think that we'll go into it at the beginning of that episode on kind of the reason why we're doing it, but just to share some information, Nathan and I have been doing a lot of research and digging up to really learn about the entire story from multiple sources, and we've been reaching out to people in the Retic community and the reptile community in general who knew Ben. Ben didn't just do retics, he did ball pythons and anacondas, so if you guys are listening to this episode when it drops Friday, at that time, we probably still haven't recorded the Ben episode. Reach out to us if you have anything about Ben that you'd like for us to know. But I'm excited because we are, there's been like the 30 for 30 or the 30-minute thing, or there's been so many podcasts and stories.
First 48, Dateline, so many murder mystery podcasts have covered it. We have the unique perspective of seeing some of the stuff happen in real time throughout the Retic community.
Exactly.
So I think we'll have a little bit different insight into some of the happenings and, the people that Ben worked with. So it's going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, we'll be able to give the perspective from within the industry where I don't think any other, topic has really been able to, not topic, but most other platforms haven't been able to do. So on that note, something that we're excited for, but obviously not the most happy episode, but just talking about his legacy is something we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you ready to bring Jacob in?
Let's do it.
Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at aefoundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. Here on TRL, we preach about the importance of using hooks, feeding tongs, and other tools with your reticulated python all the time. Animal Equipment by Stoney not only has all the tools you need for any snake you keep, but they have the absolute best hooks on the market. What sets Animal Equipment by Stoney's hooks apart from the other guys is their polycarbonate hook ends that provide a warm feel that won't disturb or bother your retic, ensuring a positive interaction from the get-go. Since 2008, AE Stoney has been supplying zoos, herpetologists, and other animal professionals with their tools. It's time for you to step your hook game up and buy an AE Stoney hook. To learn more and purchase one of their amazing products, visit aestoney.com. What's going on, Jacob?
Not much. How are you guys doing?
Doing
Good.
great. So, Jacob, do you want to give just kind of a little bit of a background of, you growing up, how you ended up into reptiles, and then more specifically retics?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. So there's no stranger to reptiles here. I grew up seeing all sorts of lizards and snakes and things just walking around. But I think mainly how I got influenced by reptiles as a kid is my mom would always try to have unique pets for us. So growing up, like we had a dog, like most families do, and then we also had not all at the same time, but just over the years, we had a fish tank full of all sorts of fish. We had a pair of red ear sliders for a while, bearded dragon, guinea pig, just like random stuff. Like every other year, there'd be a new pet, and then there would be another new pet. But the thing that got me hooked the most, I think, was that bearded dragon that I had originally back in high school.
Now, were your parents like mine where snakes were off limits, or?
So I should have asked them before because I definitely got more into snakes as an adult, but I remember being as a kid like, oh, snakes are cool, but when I was a kid, I was like, lizards are definitely closer to like dinosaurs and stuff, and dinosaurs were the coolest thing when I was younger.
You
I
should have
think
got
my mom
chickens.
chickens. That's
Truly.
true, actually, yeah. But to answer your question, I mean, I've had both my parents over to see the snakes that I have now, and they're both fine with it. But I think growing up, my mom probably would have been maybe a little hesitant on the snakes, but after showing her the retic, she's definitely cool with them now.
Okay, good deal.
And then,
And,
no, go ahead.
oh, no, I was just going to say, and how'd you end up at retics?
So retics, yeah, this is definitely a much more recent venture. So last year, my wife and I started watching these reptile videos from Clint's Reptiles. So she started this whole like YouTube rabbit hole of like, because she owned a bearded dragon and a leopard gecko growing up too. So she also likes reptiles, and it's not just me. We both have a love for them for sure. But we get into this rabbit hole of Clint's reptile videos, and then she asked me, "What's your favorite reptile?" And I'm like, well, it has to be the reticulated python. It's the longest snake on earth. That's the coolest thing ever. And I remember even as a kid, I went to this reptile shop out in Apache Junction here. I can't remember the name of it. I don't think it exists anymore, but they brought out this giant retic, and there's like me and like a whole other class. We all got to hold it at once, and there's like 12 little kids holding this giant snake. And that memory was imprinted on me. So I'm like, oh, a reticulated python is my favorite reptile. And then she gets like real wide-eyed, like, well, we can't own that. Like that's like way too big to have in the house. And then we find the video about superdwarf reticulated pythons. And they were like, oh, there are some retics that kind of stay smaller and they're more manageable than the mainland counterparts. And then I guess 8 or 9 months later, I have all these retics. I have 8 snakes now. So it kind of exploded from
That that's
zero.
that's my kind of guy right there.
Yeah. So to be fair, 5 of them are retics, and then I have 3 Western hognose snakes as well. But I still have a good amount of retics.
Awesome.
Yeah, five is plenty.
I don't know if Nathan saw this, but did you know that me and James went in together and we have a pair reserved of like straight up black melanistic Eastern hognoses that we're going to be getting?
Oh, so your count is at 12 now from our
Nice.
last Patreon meeting. Remember Luke and us?
It was
counting out
8.
for you?
It was 8.
No, it definitely was 10.
Okay, well 12. But I'm getting 2 next week, so then upcoming is still only 10.
If
Oh,
you got
man.
space for them, I mean, why not?
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, I think that so a lot of mainland people will say like, what's the point of having a retic if you're not going to have the giant snake? But this is a very good example of like someone who understands like I am incapable of housing a 16-foot animal. And it's really nice, almost a luxury for us to be able to enjoy a smaller version of it, and still not a small snake by any means, but manageable.
Right. Yeah. Like we were definitely under no illusions that these snakes were going to stay small. And my wife is a little more tentative when they get to like the 10, 11, 12-foot range too. But for me, it's like, they're might be 10 feet long, but they're only, like that big around or so. So they're not like the big mainlands that you see in the videos, or they're
Right.
more manageable for sure. And just retics in particular, I guess another reason that I chose retics is that their intelligence and their personalities are just so varied among the different individuals. Like I have 5 retics. I don't think any 2 of them act the same or treat or behave the same way when I'm holding them, or even when they explore their enclosures, how often they hide. They're all very unique animals, I think.
I got a real quick question for you about your hog noses.
Sure, yeah.
Do they all handle like they're dumb? Like they don't know how to snake?
That is a good question. So one of them is very handleable. It's the bigger female that I have. She's still only about a year old, but I will pick her up and she'll just sit in my hands and she'll move around a little bit and she's totally fine. And then the other 2, as soon as I open the tub, they are racing around or they're hissing or they just want to have nothing to do with me. And then when I hold them, they might sit perfectly still or they might try and crawl all around and I have to try not to drop them. But it's definitely the level of intelligence between a Western hognose and a reticulated python are
The
definitely
gap is
noticeable.
huge.
The gap is huge for sure. But for the most part, I think they have a fair grasp on how to snake. I mean, one of the hognose that I have that handles really well, she will eat like a retic too, because as soon as I go in there with the tongs, she will
She's
charge at
ready.
the food and just eats it right away.
I asked that because Nathan has the experience. We've got over to our buddy Phil Thompson's place and he has a couple hog noses. And when I was just holding one at his place the last time we were there, it just did not feel like it knew how to slither. I was like, what are you doing? Like, can you move normal, please? But
You need to come out to southern Utah and experience the bromeliad boa that Aspen has.
dude, I want to.
If you think that the hog nose was weird to handle, that thing, I've never seen a snake act like that. So.
It's like holding a gaboon viper almost. They don't, like, they just don't, they
Just sit
flop.
there. Yeah.
They don't. But if you don't mind, before we jump into the reverse interview and we hand you the ropes, do you mind giving us a little bit background on why? I mean, we literally, I asked Patreon, hey, is anyone down to do a reverse interview? And like literally in seconds, you said, me, I would love to do one on retic behavior, on snake behavior. Can you give us background on why that topic stood out to you, to give our listeners a little bit background before we jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that fascinates me about snakes the most, and I think it's more exemplified in retics than with some other species, is not only their intelligence, but the way that they interact with you just feels like they want something, or they're curious, or it's like, oh, what's this or what's that. and their behavior is just so different than that of like, I mean, the easiest thing to compare it to is like a dog. Like with pretty much every dog, maybe some exceptions, you know how they're going to behave. They're either going to bark, or they're going to come up to you, or they're going to want you to pet them. And with snakes, it's different for sure, not just because they're reptiles, but it's like they're more skittish by nature, or maybe they're just a little more curious, but slow to want human interaction so quickly. And specifically, one of the snakes that I bought as an adult, and when I first got her, she was very easy, very manageable to handle. I feel like I could, tap her with the hook and take her out, and everything was fine. And then I started to up her feeding because I think she should have been getting fed a bit more than she was. And then after I made that change, her entire personality shifted, where it's just like all she ever cared about was food. And anytime I would come near the enclosure, walk in the room, she'd be right up at the glass, like waiting for her meal. And then I can get into it later, but there was an incident where I was handling her, and then I was trying to put her back in her enclosure, and she just whipped around and bit my arm, and I feel like it
Nice.
came out of nowhere. Uh,
Nice.
but but definitely I want to talk more about the nuances and the specifics of retic behavior, but also snake behavior. Like we were just talking about, the Western hognoses, like, do they know how to snake compared to retics, because they're just so different.
Right. Yeah. I'm excited. If you're okay with it, let's go ahead. We're going to turn it over to you and just start shooting away some questions, and we'll go through and answer them.
Yeah. So
Also, this is a good time for Nathan. I feel like Nathan and I haven't said this in a while. We are not experts. The information that we are about to give, we've probably either heard from someone else or we've experienced ourselves. So, Nathan, I don't remember the last time that we said this on a podcast, but it's been a while, and I feel like we just need to remind people we're not experts here. So if you guys have
We are not the foremost authority in retic behavior. That is
exactly
for sure. This is all anecdotal evidence and experience we've gathered working with these animals.
right,
Lucas can probably talk a little bit more extensively, but we've been both keeping around the same time. So let's see.
yeah, and if anyone has any other feedback for him, please drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear the interactions. And yeah, Jacob, if you comment on there, so people are just like, oh, hey, this is the person, that way they could tag you.
yeah, I'll definitely do that. I think the first question I'll bring up to you guys is that noticeable change in behavior with that female that I have, where she was docile and fine for the first month or so that I had her, and then after I upped the feeding, it seemed like she just changed completely. So I wanted to ask you specifically about, is that common for, if you up the feeding schedule? Because she's an adult, I mean, I'm sure she still has some growing to do, and she'll grow a little bit the rest of her life, but you hear about.
Specifically, how old?
She's 7 years old. Yes, I should
Oh,
say.
okay.
She is 87.5% Kalatoa, so she is fairly small. She's 7 feet long at 7 years old. So she's not like a huge snake by any means.
I ask because I want to know if that snake is reproductively matured.
Yes, I mean 7 years old, I would think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But initially, so a little more background. The person that I bought her from was giving her a small rat every 3 weeks, and that's what he told me that he was feeding her. And then initially, when I heard that, I thought, well, a small rat's not that much bigger than a weaned rat, and that's what I'm giving my yearlings right now. So that just seems like it's too small or not often enough. So I think, okay, well, I'll start feeding her some bigger meals. And then it just, after that, her whole personality changed, where she was just food hungry all the time. And then I wanted to ask if you've noticed that with some of the snakes you've kept, or if there's kind of like a timeline for this thing where it's like, yeah, once you've upped their feeding schedule for X amount of months, and then once they get used to that meal size, maybe they go back to normal, quote unquote, or your reasoning behind that.
So I'll start off. I think the reproductive portion of this probably takes a pretty big role. I mean, of course, feeding size being upped and her probably wanting those calories to be able to cycle. When we've talked about it in tons of our episodes, but when you start cycling a female, their food response doubles. They become a hungrier snake. They're always looking for food, and sometimes that feeding response can come back, even after you've done your hook interaction with them. Although I'd say it's a little bit more rare. So knowing that she's older, I would expect that now that she's getting the calories that she was probably craving, she's probably trying to get as many calories as possible. I've had a similar incident with one of my animals a couple times, my big anery female who's about 10 foot. Every once in a while, when I see her in that heightened food mode during certain times of the year and when food is at more of a surplus, when I hook her out and, get her into the tub, it can be a little bit, more tense, but she'll still let me work with her. And then sometimes when I'm putting her back in, I've had it where, if I'm palpating or something like that, she'll try to anchor with her tail and then double back at me. So it's behaviors that I've come to expect of that animal in particular, when the food mode increases during, the cycling times of the year. So, Lucas?
Yeah, I definitely think that Nathan's on point here. And I want to add further information to validate Nathan's point is we've talked about this before. I'm sure Nathan's heard of it, but back in the day, if people wanted to get their snakes to cycle, they would literally put them in a bin, they would drive around town, and they would come back home and Nathan, you haven't heard of that? I feel like we talked about that before.
No, I've never heard of taking your retics on a drive.
So to say this is that oftentimes a change in location or a drive around or shipping a snake out that is sexually mature oftentimes will trigger them to want to start to develop follicles and to breed. Now, I can only theorize why that must be. New environments mean new temperature changes, new barometric pressures. It could just set off a different environment that might help with building follicles. I also think of like a really scared snake in a box going through a shipping thing and thinking like, shit, I should probably reproduce before I die. Right. And that's kind of like an out there thought. But I mean, if we're talking about survival of the fittest, they're in a new environment scared and they might want to reproduce to make sure that their offspring goes. So I think that first, I'm almost wondering if this guy that you got this snake from is even accurate with the size prey item he was feeding. A small rat every 3 weeks. I'm even wondering how this animal made it to 7 feet.
I mean, it's mystery to me. I've only been keeping retics for a short time, but I feel like if it's just not enough food. I mean, I know they can go a long time without eating if they need to, but over several years, and she was being kept in this enclosure, wrong side, this enclosure. It's a 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. That's what she was being kept in when I had bought her. And then I actually ended up getting this enclosure for one of my other retics that I have, and I have her in a 6 by 2 by 2 now. But I mean, it's go ahead.
The only other idea that I can think of if she is not breeding, right, and she's not trying to build follicles, is that she had gotten complacent and used to having such a depleted source of calories that was her thing. And the moment you came in and you're like, here's food you should be having, now she's just kind of playing catch up, and her behavior might be very instinctual with like, give me food, give me food, give me food, give me food.
I think that's a possibility for sure.
Yeah. So, and again, this is all speculative, right? But and I'll give you just some anecdotal information about why I think that could also be a reason, is because I'll have a snake that I noticed will go through a growth spurt. And the moment that I give them that bigger prey size item to satisfy that growth spurt, I always notice a trigger of intense food mode until it takes a while for them to finally adapt and reach a plateau in that current growth stage. So she just might be going through a growth stage with you, and I would actually recommend keep track of how often she's shedding.
It's funny you bring that up. So I've had her for 4 months, and she is shedding every like 30 days on the dot. So
Yeah.
she has shed for me 4 times already.
Yeah, so she's growing. A normal shed cycle, in my opinion, is probably between 45 and 60 days for a retic.
For an adult animal, absolutely.
Yeah. She's 7 now.
Yeah, she's growing for sure.
Yeah, so she's hitting a growth spurt. So, you know, what I will say is if you continue to feed in this way, if she goes off of food completely, we'll know that the theory of her cycling and everything is probably very accurate, and that's why. If she never goes off of food, but she slows down at one point, it might just be that she's catching up and she's finally like, yes, food.
Right.
I can imagine with snakes in general, mostly being ambush opportunistic feeders, she's seeing a surplus from a lifelong of being depleted on the proper size meals for her to engage in growth, that when she's now seeing a surplus, she is hoping every movement is this surplus. And she's just taking advantage of it. So, yeah, just be careful when you put her back.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not feeding her more to try and push her to cycle necessarily. If she does that on her own, then that's great. But mainly, I was just more concerned about her health and making sure she was healthy and a good size and a good weight. Because she's about 7 feet long and she's a little over 3,000 grams. So it's about 3 pounds, I think,
Okay.
converted. So she's not like a huge snake by any means. But my main concern was getting her, happy and healthy in a new place and a new space. I do want to breed her eventually, but the males that I have definitely won't be ready for another year or so.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
We could do another episode, a reverse interview on how to have a Partho clutch, and I'll teach you how to do that.
Well, I know if that happened for sure. Well, I've been monitoring her back third as well to see if it starts, swelling. I haven't seen that yet, but I'll keep you updated if that does start to happen.
Awesome.
And then I'll move right along into another question that I had. I've done some more research about it myself, but I wanted to get your opinions about for people that will get a retic if they haven't had one before, or maybe they've had snakes, but not necessarily one as food motivated as retics are. If you can, like, some things to look at when you go to open the enclosure or interact with them, differences between a behavior of food, like they think they're being fed or they want to be fed, or a behavior of defensiveness where they get scared or either way you might get bit, but I think it's important to delineate the difference about how you approach the animal if they think they're being fed or if they're scared or if they're defensive.
Yeah, that's a good question. Nathan, I don't know if you want to pull up my Instagram just to show like a quick, there was a curious moment that I had at my male Mindanao Philippine that then went into a food mode after hanging down his neck. It's like one of my more recent
I'll try
reels.
to find it, but I would talk on it first while I'm trying to look for it.
But yeah, generally speaking, a defensive retic is going to cock back. A food motivated retic is going to come at you. Just like you said, like when you walk into your snake room, your snake is like coming up and rushing at the glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
that's what to look for. If your snake is coming at you in a posture that your body feels like, oh, this doesn't feel safe, your body's telling you that snake's in food mode. Now, defensive behavior for me, what I see, I don't have a lot of defensive adults. I don't. But I work with hatchlings all the time, and I see it all the time in hatchlings. And hatchlings that are defensive and adults that are defensive, they typically feel cornered, and you'll see them pushing back, and then they'll take their opportunity to lunge forward if you get close enough and they're scared. I think that it's really hard to contextualize, to give context and to be able to explain it, but because I'm a very somatic person. Like I listen to what my body is telling me, and so it's very easy for me to know when Nathan, is there any other example of food mode where like the snake isn't coming at you, besides if they're running away and then cock back to come at you?
So I would say just the sitting near the glass, short, if no tongue flicks, and enlarged pupils are the main cues that I'm looking for. Let me pull this video up now that I have it, and you can talk on that a little bit.
Yeah. So right here, he was curious mode. He finally came out by himself, and all of a sudden I stopped moving, and all of a sudden I saw him free. So if you speak directly, like if you look what Nathan was just saying, he hasn't flicked his tongue once. Mm-hmm. So right there, I'm looking, he's not scared. That snake has no reason to be scared. And then he starts cocking his head and starts looking at me. Right. So the video is going to cut off here soon. There's a quick tongue flick. But what ended up happening after I turned off the phone, because I knew he was in food mode, is the moment that I turned off my phone and I put my phone in my pocket, that snake came towards me and I used my hook to just tap its head to shut it off.
Oh yeah.
So I was able to get again, I tapped it and it shut it off immediately, but for some reason that snake was in curious mode, was going to come out. And because I wasn't right next to the enclosure with my hand for him to come onto me, he had too much space and time of like, I don't know, not thinking to then just like the moment I pulled out my phone and started recording, he saw a heat signature and you can see him freeze, no tongue flick. And then he slowly starts to look at me and he starts to come towards me. Mm-hmm. So a scared snake is less likely to come towards you. A hungry snake, a food response retic, will come at you.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. I think in terms of just defensive versus food mode, besides the few cues that I was talking about earlier, a defensive snake, the pupils, you're going to have slight dilation. I've noticed, not totally dilated. Definitely keeping their head closer to the middle portion of their body and backing away from you. And then I have one defensive snake that, just first instinct it has when it sees its just first, its first like visual stimulus when you open its tub, it wants to bite and try to protect itself. So, just a couple differences with my animals, but that one's a super defensive animal.
We talked about that with our last reverse interview with Catherine. The pupil dilation. It's a weird thing, but I
definitely notice it for sure.
It's a big thing.
Especially with the big female that I have. She's an anery, so her eyes are usually silver. But then I walk into the room and her eyes are black because her eyes are so dilated. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on a second.
Right.
But I guess another reason I had asked that question is that instance where I had her out. So it was probably 2 months. I'd had her for 2 months. I had already started upping her food, and then I pulled her out because I wanted to clean her enclosure. And when I had her out, she completely wrapped my arm, like all the way down my forearm, and she wasn't just holding on, but she was squeezing, like not super
Hmm.
hard, but definitely like, oh, you're squeezing more than normal, and she was just sitting perfectly still on my arm. So at the time, I was thinking like, oh, is she scared right now? Did I pull her out too fast? Is she being defensive? And then that's the instance where I was trying to put her back, and then she went back into her enclosure slowly, and then whipped around, came back, and bit my arm. And then I
Yeah.
thought,
That
okay, you're
sounds like a defensive action, in my
Well,
opinion. Was it a bite and release or a bite and wrap?
bite and hold. So she was already wrapped around my arm pretty much, besides her neck, because
Okay.
she had started to go back in, and then she bit my wrist, and then she held on.
Okay,
so
that's less likely.
well, let me. So, do you remember last episode with Gary, Nathan? That we talked in detail about like the advice that he took from me and Chris. He had that retic that he was feeding medium rats, and it changed behavior. And when he would take it out, it would wrap his arm and just freeze and constrict his arm really tight. And I gave him the advice: your snake is growing, you need to up the food size. He did that, and it curbed the behavior. And the only reason why I know that is because my freaking Maluku region animals do that shit all the time if you don't feed them big meals. They will literally wrap your arm like a food response. They won't bite. And then as soon as you go to put them in, they'll wrap and anchor, they'll turn around and they'll bite and wrap. You know, and I can also agree with Nathan. You know, there are times where like if you put a snake in, I tell Sean and James, who come over and help me all the time, even though I don't even take my own advice the most, but I don't end an interaction with your snake on a bad note by smacking the tail or moving the tail and making the tail go inside the enclosure too quick, because they will turn around and come at you. Sometimes, not all the time, but
that, and it just freaks them out.
It freaks them out. And so I can validate Nathan's saying it could be a defensive behavior, but what you're describing is exactly what Gary was going through. That food was the resolution.
Yeah, the bite and wrap is the thing that makes me question if it was defensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had heard that episode too, and I remember listening to it and thinking like, this is exactly what happened to me. So I have upped her food schedule. I'm giving her a jumbo every about 10 days. I'm mainly making sure that she can handle it, and then she poops it out about 10 days later. Like, okay, I know you can handle this. I mean, maybe she can even handle more. I don't know, but I definitely want to get her into a comfortable space. I haven't tried taking her fully out yet. I've kind of try opening the enclosure, you know, to change the water, do something, and she'll come up to me, and then I tap her with the hook, and then just trying to build that relationship back again after that incident. And that kind of leads me into the next question that I have is, can a bad experience with not just a retic, but a snake in general, maybe it depends, one bad experience mess up your relationship with a snake? Or does it take like a lot of work to get that back, that good relationship back?
It depends if it's Samson Pruitt bad or I'm sorry.
I think in my experience with that, it more affects my mentality than the snake's mentality. And so if you are able to kind of take a step back and look at what may have influenced that reaction from your animal, and maybe just give them a little bit more time and space when you do after maybe a bad interaction, I think that goes a long way in building back that trust with the animal. Can it shape how you interact with that animal? I think absolutely, but I think that's more psychological thing with us than it is them.
Yeah.
Are there problem animals? Sure. Like I've talked extensively about a male I used to breed who just didn't trust people all that much, and you know, it's an animal I always dealt with in a very safe way, you know, hook handling, and you know, when it came to bagging this animal for shipment, making sure I had gloves on and,
That's the
and a
worst,
helper
man.
around. Yeah,
that's the worst.
I think it can influence how you work with the animals. But I do think that there's always opportunity to rebuild trust with reticulated pythons.
Absolutely.
Unless it's Samson Pruitt level bad.
Yeah.
Right. Don't stick your snake in a freezer and then take it out like an hour later and be like, just kidding. I I think our snakes, our snakes, I think retics remember every single interaction that you have with them. I think they have the capacity to do that, especially if the interactions are not positive. I do my best to try to have a positive ending to every single handling session that I can. And I think that you can rebuild trust, but I think what Nathan's saying has a lot of validity. I've shared this in maybe a handful of episodes, but I kind of have a theory on how snakes are able to pick up on our fear when we approach them. So the human body, when we are relaxed, our temperature rises. And when we're relaxed, our temperature is spread out more evenly in our body. When we are scared, our temperature tends to gravitate more towards our torso and our vital organs. So towards our heart, our lungs, our stomach. And so our extremities lose blood flow when we're scared. And therefore, if they are seeing things in a temperature gradient or they can sense different heat senses, I think that is part of like they can see our body language, but they can also see the heat signature associated with our extremities if we're scared versus when we're relaxed. And so Nathan has a point. If you have a bad interaction and that changes the way that you approach that animal, because trust me, I've been there. My last experience with my big female Solaire, she came out food response, bit the hook, 14-foot, 80-pound snake in the middle of my garage. In my next interaction with her, I'm like, man, please don't come at me. Like, please do not bite and wrap this hook again. Right. And so I can even be aware of like how I change from session to session. Consistency is the biggest key to making them comfortable. And I'll just say this in general with behavior, with like retics that just do not tolerate handling. For breeders' perspective and for a lot of breeders, if you're a keeper and you buy an adult and it's a nightmare, you don't like if this is a pet and it's a nightmare, find a home that is used to dealing with these animals. That should not be your pet experience. For a breeder, they might have a prized animal that they need to pass down those genetics and they will have to deal with it. Those are snakes that if they are intolerable of you, I've had to like the way that my wild caught female Calicoa right now, she is amazing. My first 6 months of interacting with her is I would feed her. When she wrapped up, I would put her in a holding tub. I would spot clean the bedding real quick, do the water while she's still wrapped around, and every like 30 seconds, if I'm cleaning the water bowl, every 30 seconds, I'd go around and I'd wiggle the pig or I'd wiggle the rat so that she would constrict and not let go. And I would do that all. Like I had a system down of cleaning her enclosure in 2.5 minutes. And then while she's still constricted, I would just put her back in the enclosure. I'd close it up and that was it. And I did that for about like 4 to 6 months with her. And now if anybody comes over, I'm talking about anybody, I will take her out and let them hold her. She's that great of an animal. My 16-year-old helper, that was like one of the first bigger animals that he got to handle, and she's wild caught. So you can work with them, but the important thing is do not end an interaction with them on a bad note. If they bite you, don't put them back in the enclosure. Wait until they're relaxed and then put them back in their enclosure when they feel relaxed.
Yeah, that story you shared is kind of what I'm doing with her right now, where I'll feed her on one side of the enclosure and then I'll clean up the other side a little bit or change the paper on that side. And then the next week I do the other side with the water and two. But I definitely want to get her back to a point. And part of it's just a time thing because the instance where, so there's an instance where she bit and wrapped me, and then there's an instance where she didn't bite when I took her out again after that, but she was wrapped on my arm for probably 2 hours solid, and it was just 2 hours of slowly trying to unwrap her to get her to go back in the enclosure and to try not to have another bad experience or not trigger that food response. And then I guess another question I have is, what are things that not just breeders, but keepers can be doing with their retics specifically and intentionally to build good relationships? So I imagine taking them out frequently is helpful, but are there specific things like, showing them around the room or introducing them to other people that aren't just you, so they get more used to people in general, or what your thoughts are on that.
I think as much interaction as you can give any animal is going to make it a more handleable, more enjoyable pet animal to be working with. I think when it comes to retics in terms of hook training, if that's a practice that you use, always approach from under the head, or, rub the side of the body instead of coming from up top and tapping the top of the head.
And don't whack them.
Yeah.
No.
Let's see.
Don't get a baseball bat.
Just enforce their curiosity as much as possible. The more you have a curious retic, the more handleable the retic's going to be.
Right. Yeah, I agree. If you have pets, like if you have a dog, or if you have a loud house, but you keep your snakes in your snake room, but you got kids or you got dogs or you got whatever, hold the snake in those loud areas. Get it desensitized to the ruckus out there. I say do that as quickly as possible. I'm not saying take your baby snake and put it in your dog's face, right? But have it around with the smells of a cat and a dog. Have it around the smells of other people. Have it around noises and loud vibrations versus just keeping it isolated into just the snake room. If you're looking for a social animal and you're looking for an animal to not get nervous easily, I think another thing that I'll go back to what I said on the last topic, right? Just positive interactions. Make sure that you are ending each experience on a positive note. Even if that means having to put it in a tub, wait for a bit. And then, so when I have, you mentioned you're a female that's going on these crazy hunger strikes, right? Like it's literally just wanting to eat everything. When I have females that are breeding that are like that, I'll stack tubs up, or I'll put a tub that's open on the level that the snake is at. I'll turn off the food response. And I'll use the hook and bring it towards me. And I almost allow it to go into the holding tub on its own. And I'll guide it with the hook until it goes in, and I can grab the second half of the body and put it in the tub and close the tub, so that I'm not forcing the snake out of its environment. You really, for a lot of us, including me and Nathan, when we take out a snake, we'll tap it and everything. We'll bring the snake towards us and we're pulling it out, right? But if I'm being honest, that's not the best practice. If I had to give one, my top advice is start young and do choice-based handling. And if you don't have a young snake to start with, like with your behavior problem right now, snake, choice-based handling. Open up the enclosure, tap it, get that food response off, and step back. And just sit on the floor with a long hook. And just plan to spend 30 minutes on the floor and scroll through your phone and peek at your snake every once in a while, and just let it know, like, hey, your cage is open. I'm out here chilling. I'm not going to hurt you. And little by little, you'll notice that the snake will come out naturally.
Yeah, I want to speak on terms of like introducing your animals to different stimulus, including different people. I do think that goes a long way. I do think these snakes are intelligent enough to know the people that are interacting with them most frequently. But I do notice that my snakes that I'm comfortable bringing out when company is over, especially new company, they almost get a little bit more like, I wouldn't say flighty, but they definitely want to climb around and move around more when they're with new people. So I think it's a good stimulus to introduce.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, if you're looking for retics that are social animals and you have the opportunity to be able to showcase an animal and take it out and have a really awesome, docile, curious snake, you want to subject it to, at a young age, people and noises and yeah. I will notice for myself, since I move my snakes into the garage, I mostly do my handling in my garage. I'll take them outside every once in a while, but I will notice some of my newer snakes, like, they're not flighty, but they're more restless when I'm inside the house with them. They're not used to it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. building off what you said about the choice-based handling, that is something that I'm trying to do with the younger retics that I have. Yeah, even with one of my hog noses, I'm trying to do that. And I think with the hog nose, it's going okay. But the first male that I got that I've had the longest, I have tried to implement the choice-based handling and to just open the enclosure and just sit in front of it, let him kind of crawl out a little bit, kind of maybe smell the tip of my finger, the end of my hand. And now he's gotten to the point where I'll come into the room and he'll be in his hide when I enter. And then if I'm in the room for a bit, he'll come up to the glass and then he'll just go straight up and he'll just sit there until I open it. And then I open it and then he kind of flops down and then he comes out on his own. And he's a year and a half, so he's still pretty young, but it's just it's really encouraging to see that, especially with the younger ones, that you can build those relationships pretty quickly, I guess. But I am encouraged about getting my adult to that point too. And I do hope that she becomes more manageable once the food behavior kind of settles down. Um, and I have introduced these snakes to my immediate impulse is like, okay, I love these animals. I want all the people I know to love these animals too. So I'm like, come see them, come interact with them, come handle them. And then, half my friends are like, this is super cool, and they love to handle them, and they're all for it. And then the other half of my friends are like, it's cool that you like snakes, but I don't want to be anywhere near them.
Fair.
So I want to know if you guys have had similar experiences with trying to introduce your snakes to people. I never try to like force an interaction, but I try to give details about like, the most common questions are like, or are they super slimy? Are they gross to hold? Or is it going to bite me? And then I try to quell people's fears. Like, once we get it out of the enclosure and I handle it for a bit, it's not going to bite you. Like, don't hit it over the head. Don't squeeze it. Don't stretch it. You're gonna be fine. It's going to crawl over you. But I want to know if you guys have, if you would have any advice to people that are not experienced with reptiles, either very limited or not at all, or about what I could say or what other breeders or keepers could say to those people about how to introduce them to the thought of holding a snake or holding a reptile and discovering a new entire species of animal that they can interact and have a good interaction with.
When it's new people around, and we kind of talked about this a little bit with Luke McWilliam. But when I have new people around and they find out that there's this snake room in the house, and then they get curious, if they're curious enough to come in, and especially if they're curious enough for some of the bigger animals to come out, I just lay down some simple guidelines. Just don't suddenly move in front of its face too quick. Like, don't squeeze down on the animal. Just let it run through your hands, act like a tree, that whole spiel. And then, you got to do your part as the keeper to manage and make sure that we're having a safe interaction in case that animal does get spooked somehow. So, maintaining control of the first third of the body, and, just little things like that go a long way in providing a positive experience for the person that's being introduced to the animal. And ultimately that's going to lead for a good interaction with the animal too.
Yeah, I feel like I have like a little bit of a superpower when I talk to, like, so people that like know me and like know that I have snakes, they know I'm a therapist, right? So like one of the very first steps that I like to have with people that excuse me, that might be scared of snakes, right? But they're curious, is outside of the presence of snakes, I'm having the conversation of, we fear what we don't know. And so I start talking about snake behavior, and I'm like, snakes aren't mean. They're not aggressive. They only, they have two responses. They want to either eat or they want to defend themselves. They're scared. And we're these really big people, and they are these really small snakes. And even if a snake is longer than us, they've evolved to know that we have weapons. Like we have means of killing them. So snakes are way more scared of you, believe it or not, than you are of them. And that tends to be a good conversation and tends to pique their interest, and they start to ask more questions, and they start to learn on their own by asking questions, right? I will say this. I have yet to have a person come into my garage and leave without holding a snake. I will never force them to hold a snake. I will never take a snake out if they don't want to hold a snake. Listen, guys,
Right.
having a true fear of snakes, that's a real freaking thing. Like I have people that like I have patients that I treat, and they're in group therapy, and there's other people around. I'm the snake guy. Everyone knows I have snakes. So when a new person comes in that's my patient, they'll come into my office and they're like, I heard that you keep snakes, right? And like, if I even just say the word snake, I can see their body tension like really tight. I can see them uneasy. So please, for those of you that like that keep these animals, do not just go pick up a snake and put it on someone who is scared of snakes. You're only going to terrify them. So yeah, and I mean, if they're open, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I take a snake out? Right? I take a snake out and I'm talking to them, and I'm again educating as they're seeing this snake kind of gum up my face, and they're all goofy all over my head, and they're like, damn, that snake is not a threat. And I'll simply ask, do you want to pet it? Like, in my hands, do you just want to run your finger along the back? Okay, yeah, sure. So they do that. And I'm like, do you want to like just hold your hand out and I'll put the back end on your hands? They're like, okay, yeah, sure. And then in 10 minutes, they're holding the snake. I mean, it's really, in a technical term, it's called it's called desensitization, right? We're desensitizing people. It's gradual desensitization. You start with just talking about it. You start with them seeing it. Then you take one out and they're observing. Then they just pet it. Then they like let it run through them, and then they're holding it. Like you're just systematically desensitizing them to this fear.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I guess it might be a little bold to call it a dream, but I would definitely want to bring more people into the experience of just holding a snake. That like not necessarily pushing to, grow a business or sell. I do want to do that, but it's more about because I feel like there's a desire that I've had that I didn't know that I had because I had never interacted with them before. And then once that door was opened, it's like, wow, all these different reptiles, these different snakes, they're so cool and they're all different. And it's just, I wish I had done this sooner and I just didn't know. And for me, it wasn't really a fear thing because I thought reptiles were cool from the beginning. But I have friends or people even that I talk to either in the work field or wherever about like, oh, you have snakes, isn't that scary? Don't they bite you? Aren't they really like defensive or aggressive? Or aren't you afraid one's going to get out and try to eat you in your sleep or something? Like that's
Mhm.
one of the common ones that you hear. And it's just like, no, I never. Of course they wouldn't do that. Like, why would you think that they do that? But it's just because they don't know. It's the fear of the unknown.
Or it's
Uh,
that telephone game with the lady who was sleeping with her snake, that old wives' tale.
oh
So
yeah, the snake was opening its mouth. It was sizing her up.
I
yeah.
mean, if you look back historically, right? Like, the Bible has been around for thousands of years, and you look at like, Adam and Eve in that story, right? And the devil, the devil, Satan's is depicted as a snake. But then you even if you're not a biblical person, and you look at when we didn't have houses and buildings, and we were outside hunting and gathering, right? Any ruffle in the grass is a potential threat. And that's exactly what you're going to see with a larger snake. And so I think we are innately designed to fear these animals. We are, even in that statement could even be challenged with the idea of like a toddler has no clue. Like I have a 3-year-old and she doesn't have a single fear of them. But I will even say at times when she was very young and she was younger, she was a little spooked by them, right? Even though she has nothing to fear. So it's I almost think it's an innate thing that these are animals that pose a threat, and they have for thousands of years for humans, whether venomous or large constrictors. So it's education is so freaking important.
Absolutely. And it's just I had the privilege of being able to take some of my snakes to a public school. My father-in-law
Sweet.
is a teacher there, and he wanted me to bring some of the snakes in to teach some his third grade class about them and just talked about the species, about what they're like, and just being able to give those kids that interaction with the snakes was just it was incredible. And it's just I feel like they get a lot of a bad rap exactly from either popular media or just rumors or stories or the history, snakes are always depicted as the villains or the bad guys, or they're sneaky or they're up to no good. And it's just they're really just most of the time they're very docile or they're very curious or they're scared, and it's just not at all the animals that they're painted to be. I appreciate the advice on introducing them to other people, and that's always what I try to do. Is I try to like, okay, if you don't want to hold one, I won't make you, but are you okay if I would take one out and you can see how it interacts with me? And that usually kind of gets the ball rolling about like, well, is it okay if I pet it? And then I'll hold the back end towards them and they pet it and they're like, oh, the retic is so soft. I thought it'd be like rough or something. And that's what's one of the best reactions I get with retics is how incredibly soft their scales are, and it's
Mhm.
great.
That's what
Um,
hooked me.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I think you brought up a great point. I think it's as much when you're introducing someone new or someone hesitant to these animals, it's almost like dealing with a defensive snake and trying to build up positive interactions. You want to make that interaction as predictable as possible. And by explaining everything you're going to do and kind of the boundaries that you're setting for the interaction, helps enforce that positive experience for the new person.
Yep.
absolutely. So I'll kind of pivot towards a different set of questions that I have. So I kind of alluded to it before, but I do hope to breed retics and then the hognoses as well in the future. It's a business that I definitely want to get into. The, without getting into the weeds too much, unless you want to, the job that I have now allows me to either pick up more work or drop more work seasonally if I need it. So what I'm hoping to do is to build up this breeding business about being able to breed and then sell the snakes as part of my income, but I don't want it to be fully dependent on my income because I want to make sure I'm prioritizing taking care of them properly. I never want to treat my animals as just like a cash cow or just like these things make me money and that's all they are to me. Like I never want to get to that point, but I am hoping to transition. The job that I have now is very physically intensive, and it would be I can't see myself doing it when I'm 50 or 60 or much farther down the line. So I'm hoping to start something like this now and build that up. That by the time I'm 50 or 60, I don't have to be in that other job where it's physical labor and it's very taxing on the body, and I can do something more like this where I'm not going to say it's easy to breed snakes, but I mean the the
It's easy.
toll the toll on your
Selling them
body.
is hard.
Yes, you're selling them. That's the hard part for sure.
Mhm.
But the reason I'm doing this is because it's less physically taxing to have to take out a snake, interact with it, as opposed to working outside 10 to 12 hours a day. Um,
In Phoenix.
Yeah, in Phoenix. And it's so hot right now. It's
Hell
just every
no.
single day is 110, 115, 112. It's like,
Not for me.
please.
Not for me. I'd rather chip ice. I'd rather go chill with the Eskimos.
Oh my gosh. No, I mean, I love Phoenix for the heat. Don't get me wrong. I could never live somewhere where it snows every year or it's cold constantly. I
Oh,
lived very briefly. I lived in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is people
it
from
did
the
snow.
Midwest. It does snow there
It
for
does.
sure. And it's you shovel snow and you get that kind of life, but I don't even want to think about living in like the Midwest or somewhere where it just snows constantly or it snows like a foot overnight, and it's just I couldn't imagine living like that.
Oh,
Nathan's head bulbs in with it.
it's so fun. I'm out in Salt Lake City, so just north of you, and I feel like the snow, especially, almost helps with my breeding in terms of just bringing
Oh
in
yeah,
those low
cooling.
pressure systems. So
Mm,
those nights where I'm getting a foot of snow, those are my nights where I'm excited to see if anything's
Pairing
ready to
nights.
pair. Yep.
Yeah.
yep. I gotta cross my fingers we get the monsoons to get the pressure drop here because that's about all I got.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it sounds like we're making a shift into maybe a business conversation.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Because I like this topic a lot.
yeah. This definitely like I said, I want to make this a business, but I want to do it the right way, and I want to try and get some insight from you guys about either the steps you've taken or mistakes that you've made, and how other people like me can avoid repeating them or do things the right way the first time. Um, and I guess first question I'll ask kind of loosely is, like you kind of said, like, breeding them is easy, relatively speaking. But once you have the baby snakes, like, what is the best course of action to get your name out there, to be a positive force in the community, to have a good reputation, or like is it social media? Is it going to expos? Is it doing educational programs? Like all those things help, but is there experiences that you guys have had that you found have been more beneficial or less beneficial with the amount of time that you've put in?
Um, let's see. So I would say make sure I think social media does play a big part of it. Um, being super positive within the community goes a long way as well. But just getting your name out there however you can, letting people know what you do, that goes a long way in
Don't
moving
put your name
animals out
out
the
there
door.
like Rodney.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying though, right? Is like the people that have a lot of people backing them up and saying, he's either helpful or, he's got some great animals, business practices great, keeps his animals clean, that kind of a thing, that goes a long way in buyer trust. So the more you put your name out there, interact in the forums, it does do a little bit in getting your name out there. But I think you also need to build a personal community of people within the industry that you can go to for advice when things happen. And, when they ultimately get a customer that's looking for something that you may have, they're willing to refer over to you.
Yeah. Okay. So business brain on. Social media equals networking. And Nathan was basically alluding to that is that social media is your method of networking. You not only need to be a part of other people's communities, but you need to start to find a way to build your own community. And everybody has their different way of doing that. I'll share a little bit about what I think has helped me be successful. And I say successful based off of like my just being able to turn and sell animals. I've been profitable after an X amount of time, and I wouldn't say fully profitable because I buy too many snakes, but again, it's kind of, my snake money is my snake money. It's not feeding my family, so I can do what I want with it. Start early. You have retics right now. I would create an account. I would try to find a way to brand yourself. Branding's important. There's not a single Fortune 500 company in the world that doesn't have a logo. Okay. And I understand your goal is not Fortune 500, but you need to be able to, when people say Jacob St. John, your logo needs to pop in their brain. And then you just start posting on there, and you need to get active into, comment on people's stuff, share people's stuff, reach out to people like Nathan said, and make connections, make friends. And the most important thing that I think it really separates the new people like myself and like Nathan and like yourself when you start to get into it is it's really about passion. So find whatever it is that makes you passionate about these animals and just keep pushing that agenda on your post. For me, it's localities. It's my lab exotics is bringing the wild into your home, right? That's like my whole slogan. And when you have what that passion is, it might not be right now. You might find it a year from now. You push it, and you get animals that meet that same niche, and you need to be involved actively so that people can see your comment. And even though you're a noob and you're new, people are going to see your name now, and those same people are going to see your name 5 years from now when you've had your fourth clutch, and they're going to be like, okay, that's a name I've been seeing for 5 years. And that's what worked for me. I was always commenting. I was putting my name out there, even if I was saying shit that I was just regurgitating from other people, right? But I wanted people to know I'm trying to be a helpful person in the community. And yeah, just find your lane on what you want to do in the retic world and niche, and roll with it. Nathan is high percentage snows and phantom combos, and he's talked about his passion with cows. I'm locality. Shane is Sunfire and the purple OGS. Weston is massive retics. Rodney is ternates in these weird localities no one's working with. Garrett is like the 7 island super dwarf combo like expert. You just gotta find what that is, because there's 1,000 retic breeders and there's 10,000 retics to buy, and you just gotta find what it is that you want to what you're passionate about, and then don't as tempting as it is, trust me, I've been there. As tempting as it is, don't veer course. Don't buy a bunch of animals and then realize like, damn, that didn't align with my projects.
I think
Yeah.
something I'm realizing too, just with the ethics question in breeding retics and producing that many animals, is I think if you do have passions without or outside of retics, be aiming to make some pet quality animals on that side of your breeding business as well. I think Lucas has definitely learned that over the years and has forced him into the chondro game. Not forced him into the chondro game, but pushed him into the chondro game for sure. In producing animals that more people can readily keep, animals that sell a little bit faster, that kind of thing. I think it goes a long way in keeping your passion for your retic projects alive.
Right.
Yeah. I'm definitely in the process of boiling down like the niche or the lane that I want to stick in, because right now it's like, oh, I want to be educational. I want to tell people about these snakes, or it's like I want to be really detailed about genetics because it's so interesting, and doing in-depth videos about like this locality came from here, was first brought in by this guy, and then I also want to do um, reach out programs or the school stuff again, or just bringing these animals to people that haven't experienced them before. And I'm definitely in the process. I'm boiling it down. I am in the process of making a logo pretty soon, and then I have content I'm getting ready to kind of edit and make pretty and look nice, and then I'm hoping to have that ball rolling and kind of finished, at least started by the end of this year.
You're going to be in
Uh,
trouble if you're not going with Adler. But
oh,
I did want to say one thing. And I think this is a new niche, right? And I think in 10 years from now, when we look back, I think the person that's going to be really like spearheading this is Abby, the curly haired keeper, but naturalistic keeping and showing that just showing the day in the life of the snakes and in this naturalistic setup. And because the new wave of buyers are loving the whole like ethics and naturalistic, and I'm very much for that. I also see the perspective of breeders and saying like, I do like the sterile. I like things to be quick and to the point, and as long as you're providing them enrichment in some ways. But that's even a niche in and of itself. But I think it's important that you share a story. For me, my stories with all of my pairings, I'm always talking about the localities I have. And then from the moment I'm doing introductions, people, if you go on my social media, there's not a single snake that I produce that you won't find the lock, the ovulation, the post shed, the egg laying, the female having the first few meals afterwards, to the eggs hatching, to the handling the babies. Like, if you want to see the progress of everything, I share that story. So storytelling is a very marketable thing too.
yeah, thank you. I mean, I love seeing all that stuff about the progress of different people's projects, or what's coming into the market, or what people are doing, how they're expanding. Especially because of the limited availability of retics in general. It's really encouraging to see what you're doing with the specific localities or the crosses, or just to know that there are people that are keeping the species in the States, and then we're getting more and more. And we don't feel like retics are, on the downcline every year, where there's less and less in the country. There's actually more and more, but being kept in a better way. I have seen what the curly haired keeper has done, and I love her videos with the naturalistic enclosures and everything that she does with her handling. The recent maternal incubation she did, I thought was fascinating. Just to be able to see stuff like that is incredible, and I do hope to do stuff or have that kind of impact one day for sure.
It took all of my willpower to not buy one of her snakes. I'm done buying retics unless they are like localities that I don't have. And it took every bit of willpower to not buy a snake because the story that she showed was so beautiful.
Really channeled your inner Nathan there.
Dude, it was hard, man. I thought about you. I genuinely did. I was like, Nathan would be very disappointed if I got a freaking Annery Motley right now.
I definitely feel you on that. There's a lot of not hesitation, but my wife was definitely like, okay, you keep buying snakes, but these are the ones that we need for the projects, right? You're not just buying what you want. Yeah.
Right.
So staying focused is definitely something that I've learned, and I want to stick to for sure. So social media, uh, definitely for sure. Start it now, start it early. And then let's say I'm 2 years down the road, I have a clutch. In your experience, what is, I guess, the most surefire way to sell snakes to people that want them? Not just to offload, like, I'll sell these snakes for half price because I want them gone and I want to make a quick buck, but like making sure the snakes are going to good homes or to people that you want them. Have you found that social media is the best place for that, or have you found Morph Market, or I don't know if either of you've done expos that you've sold at, but that's something that I've looked into as well, is maybe doing an expo circuit one year and trying to meet people in person and have them interact with the animals in person and their experience with that.
I can really only speak on the social media side of things. That's where I've sold all my animals. My first clutch was sold through Reach Out Reptiles, so I would say brand recognition there was mostly what moved the first clutch, and then social media and just my presence within the Retic community is what's moved 80% of the animals from my second clutch. I would say my procrastination is what has kept the last 4 around.
I feel that so much. Oh man. I feel that. Yeah, Nathan hit the nail on the head. And that's why I spoke so in depth about your presence on social media and the story and everything that you sell. I've maybe made 3 sales on Morph Market, and not to say anything bad about Morph Market. It's a retic issue. Go on Morph Market. Actually, I'll do this right now. I'm going to go on Morph Market. I'm going to type in Reticulated Python, and I'm going to share with everybody right now how many Reticulated Pythons are available. And that's the issue.
Come on, Lucas. Let's make it interactive.
You go.
Let's pull it up.
Yeah. So 1,000.
What do you want me to do?
1,063. I typed in Reticulated Pythons.
Okay.
So you're competing with over 1,000 other animals.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Again, the way that you separate yourself is that you have that social media online presence.
And the unfortunate part with Morph Market, I think, is, especially when it comes to retics, is some people's first intention is to hit this drop down and go, what's the lowest price I can find? And
stop. You're going to piss me off. Get out of that page right now.
Look at those.
$100 retic.
And in the super dwarf market that I work in, where I'm selling high-end super dwarfs with morphs, no one's going highest price and looking at some of the morphs where it's getting into the $4,000 range. Like, that's a more specialized buyer, right? So
exactly.
Right. So your marketability, your online presence means a lot. And if I'm being honest, I'm getting ready to delete my Morph Market page because my website is launching soon. And I'm going to be selling my animals strictly on my website. So anybody who reaches out to me and they want to buy an animal, I'm going to give them my link. I'm going to say, fill out the information, yada, yada, yada. And websites died for a while, but I feel like in today's day and age, and I feel like it's funny, everybody had a website at one point and now no one does. And I feel like it's a way to rebrand and make yourself stand out from people, is having a nice, pretty website. Now with a website, it takes upkeeping, it takes picture uploading, it's work, right? But like you mentioned, you're trying to turn this into a business. How many businesses do you know out there that are really successful and don't have a website?
Yeah, far and few between for sure.
It's not many, right? It's industry specific, but websites are important. And then on your website, you can stand out and you can do blogs. You can do you can post pictures of parents, of babies, of grandparents. You can have the lineage tree. There's so much you can do with a website that the Retic world is not doing. So for anyone listening, take notes. And not because I know what I'm talking about, but because all of us in the Retic industry hate the fact that like you don't know if your locality you're getting to locality, right? So like, you know, it'd be nice to have a website where you can prove what you have is what you have. So yeah, you know, and then as far as like buyers go, even people who message me on Morph Market, I say, here's my number, text me, and then I call them. I love talking on the phone. It's the most personable, intimate connection that you're going to get with someone across the country. If I'm trying to make a sale on a $2,000 animals, you better damn believe I'm going to spend an hour on the phone with someone. If you don't have an hour to spend on the phone with someone to make $2,000, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right? You got to put time into it. So yeah, call people. The biggest like drops of sales that I've had are people that are messaging back and forth, and I didn't have the time for the phone call. I guarantee you I could have landed that sell if I had the phone call. So get personal. And as far as like vetting buyers, I know that was part of your question. I just make sure, do you have experience keeping snakes? Do you have experience keeping large constrictors? If not, I have I created a care sheet that I'm putting on my website that I send the PDF document out to people. Let me know if you have questions. Please send me a picture of your setup. If they don't keep snakes, or they have very little or few snakes and they're brand new in this, send me a picture of your setup. Do you have a temp gun? Do you have a hook? Right? Like let's set this person. Yeah, let's set this person up for success.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Because coming into this, as I was buying the retics and even right before, I was hearing all these stories about these breeders that would be selling either mainlands and labeling them as super dwarves, or just selling little baby mainland retics that are only 2 feet, 2.5 feet long, and they're tiny, and then the buyer not realizing how big that snake was going to get. And something that I definitely don't want to do is put people in that situation. And I'm going to make sure I take responsibility on myself to educate people as much as I can. Social media is going to be a huge part of that. But if someone contacts me directly to buy something, I would of course want to tell them, make sure you know what you're getting into. Make sure you've done some research about what you're getting, the size of this animal, what it's going to require. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to just give good, accurate, honest information, and that's another thing is stick to your morals, stick to your values. Don't veer to make a sale. The moment that you start doing that, people start looking at you like you're a snake.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions for you here. There's all these cries. I'm sure it happens every couple of years, but you see the YouTube thumbnails about, oh, the retic industry is dying, or the reptile industry is going down, or oh, it's all going to go to zero. We're all going to be in trouble. But I want to get both of your opinions about where you see the reptile market, like where it is now as opposed to 5 years ago, or where do you think it's going to be 5 years from now? And you can be specific with retics, or if you have a more general opinion about the reptile market as a whole, kind of direction that's moving in. Because I mean, I'll be doing this either way, but it'd be good to kind of get an insider's information about how the market is right now.
I think the market is always going to make corrections. So, in the Retic's case, the more unmanageable your projects are for the average person to keep, the harder it's going to be to sell long term if that's a project you want to keep working with. But in terms of the reptile industry as a whole, I mean, just look at the content that's being produced. And I've heard of snake discovery videos being shown in elementary schools, and I have nieces and nephews that they love that I keep snakes, but they're more interested in what's happening over with Ed and Emily. So I think the reptile industry as a whole is doing nothing but growing at this point. Market for, super high-end animals is always going to make adjustments as animals become more available and things of that nature. But I think as a whole, the industry is still in its infancy and still growing.
Yeah. I think it's important to identify that if you only breed high-end stuff, you're really only your marketplace are breeders, essentially, right? Or people who want to breed. That's the exact reason why I went into Papuan carpet pythons. I can import them. I can still work with making really cool things, and they're $350. It's a great entry-level price for an animal. So that way, if I decide to do local shows, I can have a table of $300 animals all the way up to $2,500 animals, right? Now, I agree 100% with Nathan. The Retic market has made corrections. COVID times, people had FU money, they had free money from the government, and so super doors were being sold for $1 gajillion, and people were like, all right, I got free government money, and then I got taxes too, so let me just buy a $5,000 animal. And now everyone is pissed off because the market's kind of stabilized a little bit. It actually kind of dumped, it crashed during this most recent recession, but despite what everybody wants to say with this whole political race and everything going on, the economy is not bad right now. The economy is actually very leveled out, and it's gotten back to a decent point. Inflation's still a little bit high, but the economy is not like it was at the beginning of 2023. I'll also say this. It doesn't matter what the market does. It's about how you market yourself. I have people that are struggling to sell $700 animal, and I made $38,000 on my Solaire clutch in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Incredible.
What market crash?
Yeah.
What problem? Right. So
that's
it's again
a supply and demand thing too, though.
Right. But that's what's also important is that you're again, if you're not being selective and trying to refine and trying to perfect something, or trying to if you don't have your niche and you're doing everything, you're going to struggle. If you're making things that other people aren't making, that you equally have a passion for, right? Because don't go chase the newest, hottest thing. That's a dumb thing to do. Nathan, you unmuted and muted. Is that what you're about to say?
No, I'm just coughing.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Don't go chase the hottest thing. Stick to your lane and just perfect what you have. And yeah, supply and demand is extremely important. If you see that there's 500 50% super dwarfs out there, probably a good idea to skip a 50% super dwarf pairing, right? Because let me tell you, feeding babies and growing them out and not selling them is the quickest way to go broke in your business.
Yeah, I definitely want to avoid that. I want to make sure, in preparation for having a clutch, I've thought about having a wait list or just being present on social media, getting people ready that oh, I'm going to have a clutch. That way, by the time I do have it, maybe even half of it could be sold before they even hatch from the eggs. But I really appreciate all the advice you've given me so far. There is one more question. It's kind of a fun question, definitely a subject change that I wanted to make sure we got to before the night ends. And this question was asked me last week, and I haven't thought about it this way, but I thought it impacted me very deeply. The question is, how do each of you cook your s'mores?
Oh, good question. Nathan, you've been going first all night. I'm letting you go first on this one.
Oh, you didn't catch that, Lucas? Okay, good. We're all right. So
what happened?
Nothing happened. So I'm old school. I don't like a burnt mellow, so I'm slow roasting way over the fire for a while, and then once I'm a perfect golden brown all the way around, I just slam it down onto chocolate and graham.
Right. I can appreciate that. I'm the guy that likes to slow roast the marshmallow. I keep it far away and I rotate it.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm talking about.
I want this marshmallow to be this big.
That's right.
I want it to be
warm enough all the way through the inside that it melts the Hershey's.
Exactly. And then, yeah, absolutely. You know, graham cracker, right? For those of you that just like visuals, graham cracker, Hershey chocolate on top. fat, slow, and I'm talking about like I will spend 7 to 10 minutes rotating this marshmallow and just really loving it. It's passionate because I don't have s'mores often anymore. When I was a kid, I'd probably stick it in the fire, let it catch fire, blow it, stick it on, didn't care. Now, if I have a s'more, I treat it like it's the last meal I'll ever have. And so that marshmallow just rotates slowly over the fire, probably about like 4-5 feet away from the flames. No, 3 feet, 3.5. Anyways, slow rotations, golden brown, nice, big, fluffy, right on top. And then I smush it together and then I look like a barbarian after.
Oh yeah, it makes a huge mess. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, and I don't clean it because I'm going for round 2.
Exactly, yeah. But the way that I do it, I've had my friends tell me I'm a psychopath for doing it this way, but I love the taste and the texture of a burnt marshmallow. It's just my favorite. So I will I'll keep it in the fire and I will just let it cook and cook and cook and burn. And then that way when I pull it and I blow it, it's almost crunchy. And that's just, I like it
Okay.
that way.
There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I don't like, I get a little overzealous. I'll do it sometimes.
Yeah, but there's just something about it. It's unmatched. And then what I'll do is sometimes I'll make the classic s'more sandwich, but then sometimes I'll just take a bite of the marshmallow or I'll bite the graham cracker or the chocolate separately and then chew it in my mouth all at once. Because sometimes I just don't want to deal with the huge mess.
A deconstructed s'more.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm right there with you, man. Sometimes you're not like, you'll look around before and be like, shit, there's no paper towels.
Yep.
So try to be a little neat.
And then a pro tip that my friend gave me, I can't take credit for it. Instead of Hershey's chocolate, Reese's peanut butter cups.
Ooh, okay.
I like your friend.
I'm imploring.
Yeah.
I like your friend. How about a Reese's Pieces marshmallow Reese's Pieces on top?
That's
no
even
graham
better.
cracker.
Yeah, don't skip the graham cracker. You just
Exactly.
Reese's double side.
Man, we could talk about this for hours.
Okay, well, I have one wrap-up question for you. I feel like this is a great introduction for people that may not already know you within the community. Certainly there's some Retic people that watch this, but where can people find you? What are your plugs? And this is kind of your moment.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had
Don't
that
blow
social
it.
media. I know it's already blown. I wish I had that social media set up right now so I could just be like, go here. I mean, my Instagram account is Saint Poolman. That's where you can find me right now. I don't really post anything to it, but eventually when I do get that social media page up and going, hopefully in the next couple months, I will make a post on that account. That way people can find me there. I am present in the Facebook groups. If you're in the Retic Nation or the Retic Alliance, I'm in both of those under my name, so you can find me there. But hopefully in the coming months, I haven't quite worked out a business name yet. The name in progress right now is going to be Saint Serpents, and we'll see if it stays that or not.
I like it.
But that's kind of the name I'm working with right now. So definitely be checking up on that in the coming months, or if you're listening to this in the past, it might be there already.
Awesome. Awesome interview. The topic on behavior and even a business side of things, I think like we could do this type of episode like once a month and just get so much good information from both the guest and from me and Nathan, because I'm sure that we don't answer these questions the same every single time. But we appreciate you. Thank you so much for supporting TRL, being a Patreon member. Hopefully the experience has been great for you so far. Appreciate you coming on.
It's been incredible. I mean, the community is great. You guys are great. I love all the content and information you're pushing out, and I appreciate you letting me come on here, even though I'm a relatively new guy to the industry. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, really great putting a face to the name.
All right, guys, have a good night.
You too, man.
As well.
That's a wrap. I feel like every single time we do these, I just like them more and more.
Yeah, I think it's important to push new people out in the industry, and let people have that platform that is certainly helpful in creating some kind of following in a reptile business, whether it's Retics or not. But like we said, we have our Patreon family, one of the best Retic Discords out there. And they will be getting early access to this episode, as well as that highly anticipated episode about Ben Retic coming up next week. So if you want any of those perks, sign up at the link below, and Lucas and I will catch you on next week's episode.
See you next week.